it's a official international holiday
Okay.
in their country. The United States is not one of them.
Why am I not surprised?
I was shocked.
Do we have an International Men's Day?
Ooh, come on in.
Let's get down and dirty.
The totally unfiltered, honest.
Up to my brain.
I love your brain.
Stall talk.
Stall talk.
Y'all ready?
So this episode, it's all about International Women's Day.
I love this. So exciting.
What's weird? Okay, I did my research. There's nearly 30 countries in the world that it's a official international holiday in their country. The United States is not one of them.
Why am I not surprised?
I was shocked.
Wait, so do like women get the day off, or like what? How do they celebrate?
It's a holiday for everybody.
Wow.
Yeah, and including Germany and all these countries, and yet we don't do it.
Do we have an International Men's Day? I was just thinking, we have International Women's. Is there International Men's Day?
No, we don't have that, but we don't even have it for women.
Wow.
But actually, it's been officially recognized since like the early 1900s. But you can go back and think about inspirational women back to like Anne Frank and all those, women that came before us, and women's suffrage. And in fact, so I wanted to ask you, do you have, or who has been a significant or influential woman in your life?
Oh, so many women. My grandma, my mom, my aunt, my sorority sisters, so many women. One specifically is my grandma. My grandma was super cool. Oh. She was a baddie back in her day. They did a lot of civil rights activism.
Really?
Yeah. My family did some pretty cool stuff. My grandpa worked alongside Kennedy in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh my gosh.
And my grandma did a ton of civil rights and political activism during that time. My grandfather was the president of the NAACP for our local chapter, and she did a lot of work with that as well.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't have a story like that. But in our family, the men have all served our country. So
she did Alpha Club.
Oh, yeah. God,
Lots of different organizations. And she also was a philanthropist. She would go to hospitals and do hospice care. My grandma was a really cool woman.
Jeez, what an inspiration.
Yeah.
I just think of, maybe it's cliche, but I just think of my mom so much because my mom, we grew up rich in spirit, but we didn't have a lot. And my mom raised 5 kids, and that's in the old days where the diapers were made out of cloth, and she'd be cleaning them in the sink, and so doing the diapers and all that. But she raised 5 kids, and she went to night school doing that for 30 years to get her teaching credentials.
Wow!
So here she was, and then and also with us, she was making sure we had piano lessons. We were in swim school, so she'd be driving us to swim classes.
Your mom seems awesome.
Yeah, a real worker bee.
Yeah, So was my mom too. You made me think of some memories. So she grew up in Mexico, and she had me here. So I was born here, which was exciting for me. But yeah, she's such an inspiration. I'm a first generation college student on that side. Really? I think her furthest education that she was able to do was middle school, and then she had children and had to work and grow up, and then was able to have me here and give me a better life. So that's a big part of my life and a big story that I can't fully dive into right now, but she's amazing.
Because it's so different that women, think of the women and how in some respects we have it so much better. Well, in most respects we have it so much better than they did. And it's hard to even imagine that women weren't allowed to vote, or they weren't, in the old days, they weren't even allowed to sit at the table when all the men were there, and the different, how many different clubs and everything that women weren't allowed to to go to.
Yeah,
So
I have one last short story of women that inspire me.
Yes,
this
please.
actually happened in college. So I went to a frat party with two of my best friends, Maddie and Annalisa. And I remember one day the three of us went into the bathroom, not the bathroom stall, the frat bathroom.
You went into the boys'
the
bathroom?
Frat bathroom, and we were
Oh.
literally just sitting on the floor having a moment. And they were like, "Cass, you're our best friend, but we know nothing about you." And I was just like, And they're like, we love you, but like, you don't open up and tell us anything. So since that day, I believe that was in 2021, maybe 2022, that was like the first day that I finally started being more open and being myself and knowing that people actually want to get to know me and accept me. Because before I felt like I was always, too much, too loud, too annoying, too this, too that. So for two friends to like come up to you and be like, "Okay, we love you, so like share more, we're not going anywhere," was really special.
Oh, see, to have our women, friends and mentors, and even like, again, going back to family, I have my sister that just is really good about keeping me, for lack of better words, grounded, or giving me a perspective on life. So when I'm distressed or something's going on, I reach out to her, and she knows when I'm reaching out because I need to talk to you, girlfriend. And she gives me positive influence, and yet she can call me on my shit too, to say, Jenny, you do this. And she has a wonderful way of saying, you might try to do it this way. She's so great about that.
I love that you have your sisters as such a support group. I feel like that's what Stall Talk's all about different women from different generations and backgrounds and stories to be able to feel comfortable to be able to share just how we do in the bathroom stall.
And exactly. I mean, where are we the most free is when we get up and somebody says, "Hey, I have to go to the bathroom."
Anybody else? And we're all like, me.
And
Even
we
though
all
we
go.
don't have to, but we do have to because you're not going to miss what goes on in the bathroom.
And when we're in the bathroom, I mean,
It's like
such
the feeling-
a place of comfort.
You know that feeling when you take off your bra? That's what it feels like walking into the bathroom stall. It's like when you're like out in the restaurant, in the bar, in the environment, you're like all put together, and then you get in the bathroom stall and you're just like, oh, we can be fucking for real in here.
And
that's what it's all about.
You know where I also feel that way?
What, in the stalls?
When I'm in my donkey stall.
I love that.
That's what, but anyway, now we have a podcast, Stall Talk.
I love that.
Wherever the stall is, but the stall in the bathroom or in my barn. Stall Talk, I love it. Us uniting and girls just feeling free, women to just talk and share and be real.
Yeah.
And try to figure it out, right?
Even when I was in the boys' house, the frat house with my girls, we still found the bathroom and cried and got together in there. So as long as we have a bathroom and each other, we're good to go.
Absolutely. Stall Talk for all the Stall Talk babes. And we have a fabulous guest coming up that's going to talk to us all about, a subject we all need a lot more awareness of.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it.
Fabulous.
We are so excited to introduce Miss Undine Groeger, who is a documentary photographer based from East Berlin. And she is here today to share a little bit more about her exhibit, which is a multimedia project on breast cancer. Welcome. We're so excited to have you here today.
Oh my
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I've been talking to you for a month or two now, and I love. Okay, so getting into this, why photography?
So when I was a humanitarian aid worker, I was based in a territory that reminded me of my childhood home. And I discovered things I hadn't seen for a long time.
So where was your childhood home?
So I grew up in former East Berlin. And the wall fell when I was 10 years old. At that time, I sort of knew the wall existed, but also didn't quite know what that meant.
I just went there to Berlin this past, about 6 months ago. Incredible. But you didn't know what it meant. So again, how did that lead into where your life turned?
So I think I revisited that moment when the wall fell, of things that just vanished from one day to the other, such as like food, objects, everything just changed within, I would say not quite within 24 hours, but very quickly, like my surrounding changed. It felt like starting to live in another country, and then we also moved. So when I was a humanitarian aid worker, I felt I was given a second chance. Of course, there was also a lot of nostalgia, revisiting moments, revisiting tastes of things that I hadn't tasted, like certain pickles, a way we cooked, because East Germany and East Berlin was heavily influenced as well by the Soviet culture. So there were certain things that we would do, like maybe we would cook more Russian or more Eastern European. And when I was based in that territory, I was able to revisit that and started capturing things and old symbols as well. And I was actually documenting the life of someone I met there, who became a very close friend. And I kept going back to that territory, which is between Moldova and Ukraine, for a couple of years, even after my mission there. So privately, to continue documenting, until one of my mentors said, Undine, you're going back there because it feels like home, but it's not your home. Go back to where your home is, where you come from. So I went back to that place, and I knew that my house would no longer be there, but it was only the moment I finally returned that, yes, I didn't find anything. So the building was erased, which was normal for a lot of buildings, which happened in East Germany and East Berlin, because it was financially better to erase the building instead of to refurbish it, rebuild certain things. So it was entirely erased, and it gave me the chance to invite my family members to that place and photograph them there. So it was all about reconciling the past and the present. That's how the way I started out with photography, capturing things that reminded me of my home, working through things that I didn't quite understand, asking different generations in my family how they lived the fall of the Berlin Wall. My grandma was the first person who accompanied me back to where I grew up. So I captured her in my images as well. I used old photographs and then compared them with the landscape that was right in front of me, and thought about what I lost or what vanished and what was there to be transformed and understood and to be reconciled. So then I asked my family members to come as well to that place and space and bring an object with them that reminded them of that time. And they surprised me because I didn't know what they were going to bring. So,
that sounds like what a story, right? Was it traumatic or for you? I mean, when you say it was so different, but it sounds like you perhaps turned it around and made it a positive adjustment, or?
Yes, I think returning to places that you feel a bit of pain, but you also feel it's reaffirming. You feel certain things, and when you return to a place, you realize, okay, I am acknowledging that feeling, and now I can move forward. Otherwise, I felt sometimes a sense of feeling uprooted, and when I actually returned to that place, it got reaffirmed because my childhood home vanished, things that around me vanished, but things in life, they go and come. So it's about also letting go and then inviting in what's new and appreciating what is there for us to come. And so that was sort of a way of dealing with pain and certain, if you may say, trauma. And yet it also taught me, doing this project by myself, how this feels. How can you go back to a place that may feel painful and not be re-traumatized? In my work as a humanitarian and my work for the UN, I worked a lot on women issues, especially human trafficking, and working as well with victims and who've been trafficked, and how are they going to move through. And so the art was also always a tool to do that, to express yourself, your feelings, and find beauty. Recreate, co-create with other people, other humans who are having similar experiences, whatever that traumatic experience may have been for you. It can be very, and I also learned you can never judge. It's not like, oh, you had more trauma, or you had, oh, you only lived through this. This is nothing. I think that's very important not to do, and to validate everybody's experience and how you're feeling something. I don't know. There's a song that I think I've been very much influenced by. It's from Amanda Marshall, and Everybody's Got a Story. And it's like, until you don't know the person, you cannot judge. Like, you need to understand their story. And I can't feel how it feels to have, like, taste the lollipop. Jenilee, Skylar, I don't know how it feels to go back maybe to your childhood home. I don't know. Even if I've worked on that subject, for example, it's always new. And so I'm always open to experiencing something new. Listening to my subjects when I work with them, understanding how they felt, understanding what they've experienced or how their families felt. I think it's always important to be open.
Skylar is so much smarter or aware and great about therapy and life transitions and everything else because her beloved mother is also a therapist. So I think but I listened to her, and when you're telling your story, I think, oh, this is like things that I hear from Sky, like what you're talking about, but I can relate to it because I'm learning at my old age. That's what we're all here for, right? But I'm learning, and I can relate that, oh, that's a good place to go is you're doing it through art and photography and all that. How do you feel? What's your reaction to all this?
Absolutely. I think this is super powerful because it seems like, just from like the outside looking in, right? Seeing that you were able to heal through art, through storytelling, with your own personal experience, and you were able to bring family members together to heal and create this new sense of life. And what's super cool for me to see is that you're now recreating similar experiences for women through art, and you're allowing space for women to have their own healing and what that certain art might mean to them. And for me, that's through the mic, right? Through conversation, through storytelling. And so it's super inspiring for me to sit with another incredible woman where your form of art and healing is through photography. And I'm super jazzed to learn a little bit more about how you are using photography to deeply connect with women who are suffering, and how you are able to share and illustrate their experience through an image. Like, what has that process been like for you?
So the way I developed the process is also thanks to my mother, who I want to acknowledge, who was unfortunately diagnosed with breast cancer, and who, by observing how she's been feeling and moving through that, after her diagnosis, her treatment, and how she felt with her body was very important for me. And we eventually started collaborating. So it was mainly through how I documented her without asking too many questions at that time, to just observe and let her be as well in her space, and then starting to co-create the images though. So she, after initially not wanting to be photographed, which I also respected, and which I think is always important, photography is not for everyone, something that they want to work with. And that's also, as an artist, although I love photography, I feel like, this can do this and that or that for you. It's not for everyone. I knew my mom, I documented her before in our family, so it was something that was in her life. Yet there were a few years of patience, and eventually the first image that I was allowed to take of her was an image that we co-created. So based on a story that she shared with me about what was the moment that she felt fully empowered again in her body. When was that moment? And she shared with me that was when she did archery. She had a mastectomy, and she was doing a lot of rehabilitation as well. And part of her rehabilitation was doing archery. And she said, when I was in that moment, that was the moment I felt whole again. I felt like, and it gave me this sense of I'm in
control.
I'm Amazon. Like I'm powerful. I feel empowered. I'm like I'm a warrior. So this was the very first photograph I took of her at our childhood lake. Water is a lot, like it also stands for flow and transformation and honoring, like where we shared our experiences as well, where she grew up as a child or where she went and where I went as a child. And now we're both together as women, and letting me photograph her in the deepest winter. She said, you have 5 minutes. And that's how the first photograph was co-created. And from there on, I discussed, so what I do, although I'm a visual artist, I do use as well like talks and discussions around that before I actually start photographing, especially in that project, because it's a very intimate experience. You feel exposed, and I want the woman to feel safe. I want them to make sure that I am portraying them in the way they want to be portrayed, as much as I have an artistic vision. I just want them to know that I'm sharing their story. I don't know if it's the right way to say, in a correct way, but that they feel comfortable with that narrative and feel empowered. And so sometimes I bring objects in as well, like memories. I go with them back to places that meant pain for them, where the change happened. For example, where they announced to their husband that they were diagnosed with breast cancer. And that place, often it's in your surrounding. So in a way, if you think about it, there's the physical part of breast cancer, the impact it has on your body. Then there's the mental part, things that you remember and that come back maybe when you see certain things. So I go back to them, to these places, and we co-create another experience in that place. For example, one woman brought me back with her husband to the swimming pool. And that was the moment that she had announced it to him. And he came with her. And it was more of a reaffirmation of love, because he stayed with her all this time. He supported her. And so it wasn't a moment of thinking of the trauma of that difficult time. Yes, of course it was. I think it never goes away. And I'm not claiming that my photography or the way I'm working with people is entirely healing them, but it gives them maybe a different perspective. It helps them to talk through some things. It helps them to see themselves in that powerful moment. And also, I'm not only thinking about the people that I'm working with directly, but also the entire family structure. So I always make sure to invite, similar to my own project prior to that, I invite the family, because breast cancer is something that affects not just the individual, but they say 1 woman in 8 is affected by breast cancer. It's the most common cancer for women. Yet according to how I worked with 4 women and their partners, male partners. Yet I realized there were in total 43 family members that were affected. Wow. So making the math, or kind of extrapolating that, it's 7 women, or 7 women in 8 that are affected.
Yeah.
Either by knowing a loved one, their sister, their mother, who has it. What about my daughter? Will she get it too? Will it jump a generation? Will it not? Is it hereditary? And I just want to acknowledge also men can have breast cancer as well. It's less common.
Yeah.
And I talked a lot to the men, to the partners, the male partners as well. And they opened up. And I didn't choose the woman that I worked with because of their partners, but it just happened organically, and it was beautiful to see that we can also find allies, and that in our male partners or people that surround us, our brothers, our fathers, and how they can actually be a very strong support. I know that unfortunately not everybody has that, but these men, they went to very vulnerable places, and they were explaining to me how it felt for them, of their loved one to have breast cancer, and what it also means. We had even conversations about what it means in the bedroom. We went to the very vulnerable, intimate places and spaces without it sounding superficial. Superficial, like. And I learned so much about the woman talking about the body, like the breast cancer. If you have that, it changes you forever and physically. And also, it's not, what was important for me is it doesn't, what I've been focusing on mainly is it doesn't stop. You have the diagnosis and you have the treatment, and hopefully you survive. Yet there's always this doubt and uncertainty. There are things that are painful physically. There's certain things you can't wear. There's certain moments you do look into the mirror and say, I'm saying I haven't lived this, but I've learned that, and I'm very grateful for that from the woman. You look into the mirror and you say, oh my God, this doesn't look right. Or what do I do? Women went through so many different steps. Some of them decide for reconstruction, but then it can happen that the implants fail. One of the women shared with me, she has her 4.0 breasts. That's how she calls them, because she went through so many changes. And she said, well, when you have sex, it actually doesn't look very nice. Also, those moments are hard to go through. And she says, I look like the Rock's pecs, because the pectoral muscles on top of the implants are moving in a way that you can't fully control. So as much there's also the pain, yet she said it with a lot of humor. Yeah. But it's painful. But I worked with the woman as well. We did video performances to have them speak and talk, like have a moment of humorous moments. Yeah. And everybody's so different. Like one woman, she didn't do reconstruction. She's like, hey girl, just take a sock and put it right there and just flash. Yeah.
So I love that it's really you, a woman supporting women, even though we have our structure, so we have family, which is wonderful, and the men and all that, but it has to be very special that you as a woman too are also sharing this, because this is such a raw scenario. And yet, like you said, I even heard it when I was driving in this morning on the news, that 1 in 8 women are getting breast cancer. So yeah, we all are so effective, and it's wonderful with the support and the sharing and the learning from your exhibition and what you're doing, right, Sky?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm curious, like, knowing what you're creating through photography, like, what is your hope? And what is the message that you hope that women will receive and feel when they look at the images that you're creating?
So I was always inspired and impressed by the woman's strength and resilience that they have and how they show up in their life, that I wanted to have that transpire to other women. And because there is so much vulnerability and so much trauma as well, And it's both. I want these images to acknowledge those feelings and as well as give hope and an inspiration for other women or other men, other family members when they are going through a diagnosis of breast cancer or somebody who's been diagnosed with breast cancer, and how they say, oh, I can show up like this. Oh, I can help that way. Because sometimes there's a lot of fear, and then people also shut down, and then you feel there is a disconnect between family members as well. Yet it's all about fear, and they don't know how to open up or what to do. They feel, some of us may feel helpless, and I want to give some inspiration or some examples. And maybe some things don't work for you. You're like, yeah, no, I'm not good at cooking. I can't help the person with the food. But I can, maybe I should accompany the person to church. Even if that is not my belief, but that may help them. Often we also are shy of asking, what do you need as a support? How can I support? We find ourselves, oh my God, how can I support this person? What can I do? What can I do? And sometimes it's about, again, a conversation saying, what do you need? How can I be there for you?
Well, that's what I think your photography does, is it gets the conversation going. And your work is outstanding and beautiful. And oh my goodness, I'm so thrilled that you're here and your work and your advocacy work. And I know that you're helping all of us. So it's wonderful. It's a beautiful art form. And again, it's helping all of us to understand. And I love even hearing your positive energy about, hey, bad stuff can happen, but we can still take some beauty away from it, and camaraderie and support within and all of us. Hope with all of us. Yeah. Sweet. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Love your work. Everybody, everybody needs to go out and see her work. It's beautiful. And how lucky we are to even have you here. And I know that all the people that you're affecting, even as on Stall Talk, with all the Stall Talk babes, it's conversations that we need to have and continue to have.
So when is your exhibit?
I don't have a date yet.
Okay.
I hope soon, because I want to honor all the women who I photographed. Some of the women, we're all getting older, yet we stay young at the heart.
Absolutely.
Breast cancer is always about surviving and living on, and I'd like for everyone to see this exhibit, everybody who's been contributing to it, who's been photographed, and some of the women are approaching 80 this year, others approaching 70, and some other women approaching their 60s. So, and I hope to
we need to get their story out.
Yes.
What a beautiful conversation.
I love women supporting women, and we're going to share something very special with all of you.
Let's take a look at some of these behind-the-scenes clips with women supporting women, along with our special guest on Stall Talk.
It's all about support system and being surrounded by women who are able to hold you. And I know that that is not always the case as women in corporate America, but I cannot even imagine what that's like for you in politics.
I had my personal anecdotal experience of what this was like, but there was just a study that came out, I think 2 days ago, that found that of the demographics entering the workforce, the most disadvantaged, the ones that are most disadvantaged by bias, by being counted out and not taken seriously, are young women. And I found that to be so true. I was the first Gen Z woman to run for Congress, and we already had a Gen Z man in Congress. Like, it was clear at that point that we were qualified as a generation, and yet you would think that I was in elementary school the way that people spoke to me.
Wow.
And so my advice for young women is, no matter what you want to do, whatever kind of leader, and this matters, you don't have to be running for office to move the needle in the right direction. You can be a leader in your community. You can be a leader in your family. You can be a leader to your friends. You can be a leader at your job. Whatever it is, take a look at the boundaries of what kind of bold action might scare you, recognize the fear, and do it anyway.
I sought out representation so ferociously as a kid because I wanted to see myself somewhere, anywhere. And if I saw a black girl, it usually wouldn't be like a dark-skinned black woman. And she usually was not going to be like strange and peculiar. Like she would just be like hanging out, or like
socially acceptable version of who she should
yes, exactly that. And it was really difficult for me because I always felt this kind of need to assimilate, if not socially, if not to compensate for my race, as if there's anything to compensate for. Like you are not in a social deficit just by being a black woman and existing. But like
We need to take a
period,
moment for that.
like that one. And I love when I meet supporters and they're black women because I'm like, yes, it's working. It's
I love
working, you
that.
guys. It's happening. Like, I love to think that I am becoming what I needed back then. That is such like a beautiful idea for me. Like, that is what I aspire to one day kind of turn around and leave a trail that black women can see themselves in and kind of find comfort in, because it's hard out here.
No,
It's very
I
hard.
completely agree with you on that one.
And so if I'm able as a small brand to be able to make, these touch points, have that conversation, have that connection, and then take that from there, we help each other out.
I didn't really understand what running a rescue was like until I got into it. My task force was a completely different entity. And it's completely different when you're taking in dogs, caring for them, medical, adopting them out. You have to create your processes. You have social media. I mean, there's just so much involved with, it's the same, it's running a business.
Right.
It is really what it is.
I know with entrepreneurship, there comes many highs and lows. And I think especially when it's your business and something goes wrong, you feel it on such a spiritual and deep level because it's your baby and your vision. So how do you navigate through the highs and lows of being an entrepreneur?
So for me, my true north is a family member, which is my sister. And often when I want release or relief and time out, just to get away from the laptop and the hustle, she's the one who keeps me going. And you've got to have somebody.
Was on the show 10 years, like you said. They were primarily looking for a black model. They had to hire a black model after 17 years. And it was a long time auditioning and doing a couple of shows, this, that, and the other, till they came to their senses and hired me. But I want to say working with Janice Pennington on that show, because I had always looked up and admired these women. I always aspired and claimed to do this and got the position. But Janice Pennington, she was on the show, and just being with her and Holly and even Diane, a lot of the models on that show, they were seasoned and they helped me a lot.
I wasn't a negative, but also being a great saver, being an immigrant, working 3 jobs, having no days off for 3 years, Monday through Sunday. Wow. Started college at 24, then of course graduated with 3 degrees and 5 languages now, all this stuff. But my point is, if you don't have emotional support, financial support, and that mental support, it is very difficult. How do you navigate when you have a strong support system? Because from the beginning, you've been supportive of them and they've been supportive of you. Guess what? You need to rely on that support system.
It's super interesting for me to understand a little bit more about your personal story with boxing. I mean, I can only imagine being the only female in such a male-dominated industry. Do you mind sharing with us, like, maybe some of the challenges or adversities that you had to navigate being the first and most successful female boxing manager, and potentially how you've overcome some of those adversities?
Well, that's always a fun question, because when I started back in the late 70s, there was no Me Too movement. We just dealt with what we dealt with. And being a woman going into locker rooms, it actually started before boxing when I was a writer. And I would go into the locker room after a football game or something, and all the guys would be in towels. And they would kind of mess with me and drop their towels and try to get a reaction. And I think by keeping my cool and not acting shocked, not acting like I noticed anything at all, eventually they just kind of figured, she's a badass, tough broad. Let's deal with it. Rather than try to push me out, they kind of let me in.
Well, I think one of the things that I got from being a cheerleader was the camaraderie and sisterhood of 28 other girls who you lived with, who you ate with, you shared with, you danced with, you cried with, you laughed with. You know, that was huge. I mean, that's it's like living in a sorority house, right?
We
You
were
make
tight.
friends, and they become lifelong friends.
And then I also tell them, mommy does work in fashion, but I work in fashion to make the world a better place. And I tell them every day, you guys are women. Women are you guys can fly if you want to. You can do whatever you want, So I really try to use all of the things that I've been through and knowing how hard that was to empower them times 10.
And I think we can absolutely be driven, successful women, but also we can take the freaking backseat and be like, babe, take me out. I'm going to just show up. We're allowed to do that, and we're allowed to receive love, and we're allowed to not be okay.
Yeah. And I know it can be hard to hear, but really, specifically, if I just look at my dating life got so much better when I really took radical responsibility, and I was like, my dating life hasn't been what I wanted to be for years. I'm the common denominator, babe.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that I continue coming up against. But I've also had to stick to who I am because I felt myself dimming my light because I was a woman. And it's like, don't be too over-friendly. Yeah. You might be seen as you're flirting and it's just why do we have to dim our light to make the other person feel comfortable or not make a pass at us, which is insane.
Insane, crazy.
So thank you, because that actually just allowed me to share that. I've been very cautious to share things like that, not wanting to obviously expose anyone or make anyone feel uncomfortable, but I still to this day face that.
I think there's also a side of this that's very healing for me to sit down with you and be like, look, life is not perfect at all right now. And I know a lot of the people listening can relate with us.
I love to learn something new every day. But when you're learning and you're educating yourself and you're sharing, you are changing.
I will literally sit at a restaurant and talk about a whole sexual experience over a burger and fries.
And who's in front of you when you're going to talk about that?
My girls.
Good girls wouldn't do that. Good girls, they don't cuss. They conduct themselves in a classy manner. You don't talk about such things unless you're in the bathroom stall.
Yeah.
So if we go to the bathroom stall together, that's when you can talk like that. But outside of the bathroom stall, I would never talk about those things.
Why do we have to feel shame about talking about our bodies?
I struggle. I have moments where I'm like, this is really not feeling uplifting for me right now. And I have jaded moments and I have to call on my people and I have to really kind of dig deep and have open, vulnerable conversations with not only my friends back home, but the ones here living this life.
This concept of fear, right? It's not going anywhere. It's a real thing for all of us. It's a real thing for you. It's a real thing for me. It's a real thing for everyone that's listening. And I think my relationship with fear is that I know it's always going to be a part of life. And I think my mentality moving forward is just, I'm going to wear fear on my back like a backpack and bring it with me and step into the unknown, step into the fire, and just be like, fear, I see you, but it's okay.
You're the best group of girlfriends.
Thank you.
You guys have such a wonderful support group. And so you take something bad and you turn it into positive.
It's really sweet. I'm so grateful to have them. I couldn't stress that anymore, how grateful I am to have my friends.
It really goes to show someone's true colors when they can support you when you're succeeding, because there are people who, when you pass a certain level of their expectations for you, they have a really hard time with that. So for me, it's been the girlfriends who have been just supporting me and celebrating me when I'm doing really well, and also will lie on the floor with me when I'm on the floor.
Yes, I think it's so important to recognize those people who have been there for you throughout their lives.
Aww. See? That's awesome. I don't know. But, well, you're my Valentine.
Oh,
so
thanks, love.
That's why I love sitting here with you, Cass, because We are not perfect by any means. There's no such thing as perfect. And this is the real.
And that's what makes life really special. What we need to do is we need to change it up. And Stall Talk is helping us do that, right?
It is. It's a very special platform that I'm very grateful to be able to be at. And just let people know that it's okay to feel however you feel. And if your mind changes on things, that's fine too. It's why we have these conversations. That's why we talk about it. You know, saying it out loud also helps me in a way, like process my own feelings and learn about different things from a different perspective.
So I embrace you.
And we embrace you too.
Embraceful use. Silly. Thanks for watching another episode of Stall Talk.
Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on all our social media platforms.
Happy International Women's Day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.